Jimmy Carter's Domestic and Foreign Policies by Luke Biddenost. Created Department of Energy. The 1970s proved the necessity for unified energy planning amongst the federal government. This led to Carter signing the U.S. Department of Energy Organization Act on August 4, 1977. The Department of Energy was responsible for energy technology, conservation, and development. This proved to be a good and promising start to Carter's presidency in creating the Department of Energy. Panama Canal Treaty. One of Jimmy Carter's first challenges as the new president involved America's ownership and control over the Panama Canal in September 1977. Previous President Theodore Roosevelt had signed a treaty in 1904 making the Panama Canal controlled and occupied by both America and Panama. Jimmy Carter and Panamanian leader Omar Torrijos came together to sign a treaty. This treaty gave Panama full control of the Panama Canal, making America no longer partial owners of the canal by year 1999. This did not really harm Carter's image, but few claimed him as weak for giving up the canal. Camp David Accords. Jimmy Carter's most significant foreign policy accomplishment. Previous feuds in the Middle East with Israel and Egypt and Yom Kippur War. Carter brought together Egypt and Israel's leaders, Sadat and Begin, to Camp David. These three leaders signed an agreement to bring peace between Egypt and Israel. The peace treaty was called the Camp David Accord, signed on September 17, 1978. Carter gained political praise for this achievement in bringing these two feuding countries together and strengthening foreign relations. The 1979 oil crisis. The Iranian Revolution led to the 1979 oil crisis because Iranian workers on the oil fields went on strike, causing the production of crude oil to decrease. Iran produced crude oil for countries all over the world, including America. This caused oil prices to rapidly grow because Iran was not producing nearly as much as they once were, causing an oil crisis across America in 1979. In response to the oil crisis, President Carter attempted to repeal the prices for crude oil. Overall, the American citizens were not satisfied with the spark of the oil price and not happy and pleased with Jimmy Carter as well. SALT II and the boycott of the 1980 Olympics. SALT II was between USA and USSR. Treaty signed by Jimmy Carter and Soviet leader Brezhnev in June 1979. This was an agreement that limited the deployment of nuclear missiles in America and the Soviet Union, making them equal in nuclear weaponry. The signed treaty turned out pointless and a failure, being that neither country ratified it and the Soviets invaded Afghanistan soon after. In response to the Soviet attack on Afghanistan, Carter cut off grain sales to Soviet Union and protested the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow. President Carter ordered American athletes to not compete in the Olympics. Carter's operation to boycott the 1980 Olympics only harmed his reputation. Iranian hostage crisis. Carter allowed the exiled Shah of Iran to enter America for medical care. This, along with past actions, angered Iran. A group of Iranian students captured 66 American diplomats from the American embassy in Tehran. After soon releasing 14 of them, the Iranians had 52 Americans held hostage in 1980. Jimmy Carter took immediate measures toward the hostage crisis, such as secret negotiations, but failed to release them. American citizens were becoming impatient and frustrated with President Carter because of his inability to release the hostages from Iran. Operation Eagle Claw. President Carter finally took military action towards the Iranian hostage crisis in April of 1980, known as Operation Eagle Claw. The goal of this operation was to send in a rescue team with helicopters to the embassy compound. However, the helicopters coming to rescue the hostages came across a terrible desert sandstorm. This caused 3 out of the 8 helicopters to malfunction, including one that crashed, unfortunately killing 8 soldiers. This failed attempt to save the hostages caused Iran to disperse them throughout the country, making it harder for America to rescue the hostages. Carter's image really took a hit with this aborted and failed operation. Domestic policy grade A-. I give Jimmy Carter an A- grade on his domestic policies. He created and signed into law the Department of Energy, which was essential and important to the time of the energy crisis. The Department of Energy was responsible for energy technology, conservation, and development. He also created the Department of Education, collecting data on American schools. These 2 departments he signed into law were good domestic achievements. Jimmy Carter also signed the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, which protests the millions of acres of beautiful land Alaska has to offer to America. These domestic achievements Carter had during his presidency were pretty beneficial to the American citizens, which is why I gave him a solid A- grade on his domestic affairs. Foreign policy grade C+. I give Jimmy Carter a C+ grade on his foreign policies. The Camp David Accords was his only positive policy as he had poor results with other foreign affairs. He was praised and admired for bringing peace between 2 fighting countries in Egypt and Israel. If it wasn't for the Camp David Accords, I believe Carter should receive an F for this grade. He miserably failed to rescue the 52 hostages from Iran as they were held captive for 444 days. Operation Eagle Claw was an aborted mission by Carter to rescue the hostages, which had no success. Incapability of Carter to save the hostages infuriated the American citizens. He also upset numerous people with the 1979 oil crisis and the boycott of the 1980 Olympics in Moscow, as well as SALT II being suspended and useless. For these numerous foreign policies where Carter irritated the American people, I could not I could not give him anything higher than a C+, despite his success at Camp David. We're excited